Hi everyone, welcome to my latest blog. The title of this blog is How I Contacted ET. I'm going to talk about my ET contact experience, which occurred in April 2008. This will seem a little bit strange and far-fetched to some of my friends and family members, but anyway, I thought I'll just put it on record and make of it what you will. For others interested in the subject, I suggest that you try it out for yourself, and I'd be very interested to hear about your results. So, in 2007, I read a book by Dr. Greer called Hidden Truth, Forbidden Knowledge. And in that book, there is a chapter about how to contact ETs. In other words, it's like a close encounter of the fifth kind, or a CE5 encounter. And I read that chapter and it was very, very interesting. It wasn't until early the following year that I had the sudden insight to try it out. And it happened because on one evening in April, I decided to go jogging. And I went jogging in a park near my house. And then after my jog, I lay down on a park bench and I did some other exercises, some sit-ups and some push-ups. And then I lay back on the park bench and looked up at the night sky. And I noticed it was a very starry night. It was clear. There were a few clouds around the horizon. And I suddenly thought, wow, this would be a great chance to try out the CE5 Protocol. And I wasn't really expecting much, but I thought I'd just give it a go. Why not? It mentioned in the book that it's best to do this protocol in a group because there's more energy, and also I believe that the ETs are more interested in meeting groups of people. But anyway, what the heck, I didn't really have any friends interested in ET contact or UFOs, so it was only me. So what I did, and this was distilled from the protocol in the book. Everything I mention now is basically a distilled version of the protocol that I read in Dr. Greer's book. So at first I began by doing some relaxing deep breathing exercises, and I did that for a few minutes, just breathing regularly, relaxing. And then the next step was I projected a feeling of goodwill and love out into space, and invited any ETs that were in the vicinity to come and see me. And the important aspect here is to have the emotion of goodwill and the emotion of love projected very strongly. So I did that. I can't remember how long for, as long as it felt necessary. And then in order to show any ETs where I was, the way you do that, and the way I did it, was that in my mind's eye I imagined myself floating up into the sky, into space, and then once I was high above the earth, I'd turn around and look back down at earth, and I saw Japan, I saw the area where I was living. I imagined in my mind's eye the park where I was at, and in so doing I showed them my location. And I once again projected the feeling of goodwill and invited any ETs to come and see me with the emotion that I really wanted to see them, and my emotion was full of goodwill and love. And then I kind of left it. I looked at the sky again, and I noticed in the sky the constellation of Orion, and I had recently read a book by Graham Hancock, and I think it was John Bevell, that both written a book about the Orion Nebula and the connection to the Great Pyramids in Giza in Egypt. And so I was fascinated just looking at the Orion Nebula, the Orion Belt, and the Orion constellation. So my mind had kind of drifted, and I'd soon forgotten about the protocol that I just carried out. And I started kind of daydreaming about space travel and stars and astronomy in general. So I'd completely forgotten that I had done the CE5 Protocol. And it must have been about 7 or 8 minutes later that I spotted the UFO directly above me. And what it was, at first it didn't register what it was. I was just sort of like a stunned fish. What's that? You know, I didn't register, oh look, there's a UFO. It was just like, oh my goodness, what's that? And then it suddenly came back to me, oh, I've just done the protocol, and oh, that's not like anything I've seen. It must be a UFO. What it was is it was an extremely fast-moving star, and the star was slightly fuzzy, bright, and greenish, and it traversed the whole sky from up above me to the horizon in about 5 or 6 seconds. So by the time I'd registered that it was a UFO, it was already halfway down towards the horizon, and I just watched it, and it disappeared over some cloud near the horizon. And I spent a lot of time in my life doing skywatching. I was an amateur astronomer. I used to spot satellites, go out satellite spotting, so I know what satellites look like. I'm familiar with the kind of speed that they have. They're quite slow. They're quite slow-paced things, and I'm familiar with shooting stars, and they just zip across the sky in an instant. Well, this was much slower than a meteorite, and it was much faster than a satellite, and it certainly wasn't a plane. It was much faster than a plane. And I had this sense, I had this feeling that they'd visited me, but they had simply changed, rather than pay me a personal visit and come directly to me, they had simply changed their frequency to allow me to view them as they pass overhead. And for me that was a very personal confirmation that the subject was real, and I was very happy. So I haven't tried it again since then, but I have seen some very strange aerial phenomenon in England when I went there last year, and I'll talk about those two incidences in another video. I think an important point about my encounter was, well, part of the ingredient of success, I think, I could be wrong, was that I let go. Once I'd invited them, once I invited ET to come and visit me, I let that wish go, I let that hope go, I just let it go, and forgot about it. I was luckily distracted by the Orion Nebula, and I think, I can't be sure, but I think that was an important part of why it worked. I think once we put out an invitation, once we send out our goodwill and invitation, the important thing then is almost to forget about it. I've just realized I've almost run out of time. So thank you very much for watching. Please leave your comments. Let me know about if you've tried it out for yourself. Let me know how you got on, and we'll see you again soon. Goodbye.